Good morning, guys. So I'll take a short class today, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Maybe I'll just finish only small topic and then we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, so yesterday we started something called init. Okay, what it is nothing simple. When you are creating a class and once you create an object, say for example now let me put it this. So we have a class student and we have some arg name also defined. So it is just I am giving every time it is to just indicate what is the class variable. Then I have a method here. Then I am printing this method. So this is what we have earlier. Means so we are creating a class and we are defining some class members. Okay, variables, hall ticket, Aadhaar and full name. Okay, and then we are trying to print this information. So once we create, so now we are very clear that okay, when you create a object, it is a reference to that class, and then you can define different values to different objects. So now I am going to create one object, obj1 I am creating. So this object student1. Okay. Now in case if I want to display this value, so now there is an object created. It is an empty one. Okay, we have not associated any values. So now if you try to print, so print student is the method here. Now I am trying to print this value. So now if you look at there is a class in add student method, we are assigning the values through parameters. Means if I call add student, either through parameters you can give or you can directly give the values here. Means self dot alt equals xyz, self dot other equals something. Either you can put the values here. If you put the values here, every time same values will be assigned to this object. So if you parameterize, you will have a flexibility to change the values every time when you are adding them. Means if I say add student, okay, once I can give one student value, second time I can give second different student values. Otherwise, if you fix them here, every time you will take the same values. Okay. So that anyway we already exercised yesterday. So now what I am doing, so there is a class. Now here what I am doing, I am trying to print the student details directly. So now when you run it, okay, you will get error. Student object has no attribute hall ticket. Why it is expected? So class is created. So there is a object reference created. So now I am directly printing the details of the hall ticket Aadhaar. What when I call this print student method, what it is doing? It is printing hall ticket, Aadhaar, name, and organization name. So you are trying to print, but what is missing for us? we have not associated any values. We have not assigned any values to hall ticket, Aadhaar, FNAME. Okay, so that's why when you're directly calling this, it is a fail. If I want to make this or if I want to print, okay, unless until you give the student details, you can't print, right? The same thing. So now if I call add student, then assign the values. We have tried previously. Some values you can assign. Okay, if I assign these values, then you can make it is an object created. So this method is assigning the values to this particular object. So then you can print it because it will go here. Second one will go here. Third one will go here. So then you can print it. So then if you call this, even if you try to put it. So now, okay, let me run it. Okay, this is successful because it is displaying all these hall ticket, everything, whatever we have given here, it is displaying. Even by mistake also, if you put it top and then try to display, you'll get a failure because object is created, empty object, and then you are trying to print. Okay, and but you have not assigned any values to them, so you are getting error. Student object has no attribute hall ticket. Means first it is giving hall ticket, then Aadhaar, F name and all that. But will. And also here, one thing I want to inform you that if you see here, when you are getting a failure, it is not related to Python in general. Student object has no attribute hall ticket. So now it is throwing the error hall ticket. Okay, you're sorry, you're trying to print the hall ticket and then it is showing that error because it is hall ticket is not there. If you look at the day one, I told you when you have a programming language, there are two engines which will evaluate your program. One is a compiler and interpreter. So the difference between the compiler and interpreter is if it is a compiler, it will compile all the items and then show every error. So in this example, currently, not only for hall ticket, even for Aadhaar, FNAME, ArgName, for all of them, we do not have the values assigned. But currently, you got the error hall ticket only. Means it is not evaluating all of them at once. The reason is Python works in a combination of both compiler and interpreter. Currently, you can see when it is throwing the error, it is backend Python interpreter is working here. So always interpreter will go line by line. Say for example, right now it is error. So immediately it will throw error. If you correct it, then it will try to go for second, then third one, fourth one, something like that. So interpreter will interpret, maybe it is not current to today's context. In general, I am saying interpreter will try to evaluate line by line, interpret one by one. So if there is error, immediately it will throw that error. So whereas compiler, it will try to, as a whole, it will check, okay, hall ticket is missing, Aadhaar is missing, FNAME is missing, or if it is a C, C++ kind of thing, Java kind of thing, it will throw big list of error. Hall ticket missing, Aadhaar missing, FNAME missing, org missing, or even anything also, it will throw in one shot here. So both have their advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so now it is not the time for debate here. So both have, but Python has both flavors, compiler and interpreter. But right now, if you see high level error when it is throwing, it is behaving like an interpreter. So now it is so pointing here. So if I correct the hall ticket only, then it will show error in the either. Then it will show. But looking at the high level, right, as a programmer, you will have a sense of the overall program. You can definitely easily catch, okay, that is something missing, everything you can correct here. Because it's only one time activity. When you are developing, then you will have this issue. Okay. So now coming back to here, object equals student, and we have not assign the values, but you are trying to print, then failure. Even if you assign later, it doesn't matter, because when you are using it, by the time the values are not assigned or not available here. So to solve this one, say for example, in some situation, you are calling the student, okay, before assigning any value. That is very well understood. Okay, but I have a requirement. Anytime before assigning your values, okay, if you are trying to use the values, okay, so then what you can do, you can give the default values. Okay, say for example, when you go to any website filling the form detail, so for some, let's say for example, country. In country, by default, okay, your India value will be selected and placed there. If you want to change it otherwise. So those are called default values. So any in software terminology, anything if you want to pre-assign the value, so that you can call as a default value. So here also in Python, we can assign default values when as soon as you create an object reference to this particular class, so immediately you can assign the values to that particular object. Means you can indirectly you can assign some default values to these variables, and that can happen through a method called init. So this is exactly in C++ and Java world, we call it as a constructor. Means while you are constructing the variables, what is construction? So while you are constructing the object itself, you are trying to assign some values, default values. Means it will always place those values there. And in case you can keep on changing like this, you can keep on adding them later. But in case in the any situation during the construction of your object itself, if you want to pre-assign the values, you can use this one. And it is the same concept in Java world. We call it as a constructor, even in the C++ as well. So how do we assign them? So we have a keyword called init, double underscore init and double underscore and brackets. So then, and here also we need to say self. So here you have to give a real value, but for your information sake, I'm just giving default already. Okay, so done. Anything else if you want to can. So now we are just giving, even if you try yesterday's, we have already put something here. So yeah, exactly. The same thing what we have done. Okay, I'm trying to repeat here. Okay, so this is your constructor kind of thing. So one important thing we must so it is a method only. Okay, but by looking at this keyword underscore underscore in it, so what it will understand, even if you look at here underscore underscore in it, what it will understand that, okay, this is whatever you have here. So this assignment I should be done during the construction of the object itself. So right now, same program. Now, right now, what I am trying to do, object one equals student one. So I am creating the object here. So as soon as or during the object construction, without your intervention, so this init will be invoked internally without your intervention. It will automatically invoke this one. You don't need to explicitly call it. You don't need to call it. And you can, it will automatically invoke. And now let's try once. Now you can see immediately all the default all ticket number, default Aadhaar, default F name, all that it is getting displayed. Why? See, now here I have not give previously without this we got a failure, but right now it is not failing. So now if I say, so here I'm adding new values, then I am printing. Let's see what happens. See, here I'll say, so printing default values from constructor when we have just created object itself. During the object construction, by default internally, this has been invoked. Then all the values, variable values have been assigned here. Then say obj1 dot print student, we are getting all the default values. Then here after new values, we call this method here. And then after new values, after adding this one, so all those variables have been reassigned with real values. So whenever there is a need to have the default values or one-time values, in this situation, the constructor can be invoked here. So this is what exactly constructor in other object-oriented world. In Python, it is like initiate method. Initiation method means during your object initiation, we are trying to assign some values here. This is the concept here. Okay, so is it clear? Any questions? Let me know. Okay, so now you'll have one question. Say now every time, okay, when this object is creating, okay, default values, because anything which you mention here, right, once you compile your program, fix up in your repository, every time it will take the same values. Means you can't change it because it is in the code, right? So that's why it is called default values. But if you have a requirement, say now I am calling the now today I am calling this object. So now today I want to give different values. Means default values only, but different default values I want to give rather than every time fixing them. Of course, you have a method to reassign, but in the constructor itself, you want to have the possibility to change the values. But right now I can't change it. If I want to change, only thing is I want to change the code and recompile and then do it. But if you want the flexibility to even have the facility to change the values, what you are supplying the constructor or initiation method, even still it is possible. You can also put parameters here. I'm just saying P1, P2. We need only 3. So now even I don't want to take the hard coded values. So in terminology general, I'll be using the word hard coding. Hard coding means you are fixing. Whenever you give any hard coded value, if you want to change, again you have to change in the code and recompile it. So generally we will avoid most of the scenarios. So P1, P2, P3, P1, P2, P3. So now even for the constructor also, initialization method also, I am trying to supply the values from the outside. Means this will give a facility to change your default values. Not only for this one, even if when you are creating different objects, for every object you can supply different constructor values. But otherwise, in previously, for every object, okay, it will, when you are constructing, it will assign the same values. If you have 100 objects created, 100 objects will take the same values. If you have that requirement, you can proceed. But you have a requirement to change during the initialization of your constructor or your object. If you want to supply the values, it is possible. So now obj1 equal to student of. So now similarly how we have created, same way I have created right now. So now I am compiling. Now you see we got error. Missing three required positional arguments. Same way I have created. So this proves that this init method, whatever I have given, is getting auto triggered when there is a object created. So this will clearly prove for you. I didn't do anything, okay, and even I didn't call it, but how it is getting fired? So during the object creation itself, this is getting triggered in the back automatically. So when it is triggered, it is expecting three parameters, but we have not given anything. So how do we supply? So we can supply those values here itself. Now you can see there is no error. Okay. When there is a init method created or constructor is created, if there are any parameters supplied to this init method, so during the object creation itself, we need to supply them. So in this previous example, I have not given any parameter. I have hard coded the values. Every time it will take the same. But here you will have a flexibility to change them. So now if I call obj1.print, you will get. So one advantage is that when you are creating obj object, you can have a flexibility to change the values here. Now for obj1, if you want to assign the values of your own, like how we have called, then you can. So for obj1, I am assigning the values. Similarly, for obj2, you can assign the values. So they are all different. So if you take print out, print student for obj1, obj2, then all that you will get it differently. After assigning the values, if you try to print the details, you will not get the constructor ones. You will get the rig shot. You can maybe a difference one you can see here. One is obj1, a rig shot we have given. Okay, and also Dave Walter we have given. So Dave Walter, okay, and rig shot. obj1 and add student, then print. There are two prints here, so unnecessary extra print coming. Rick and David Walter. So you have given default values, even we have overriding them, because though you have given default values, we are not printing them, because again we are adding the values and then printing it. Again we are, so when this will help when in the absence of you are assigning the values, or you want to use some of them default, or even it is also possible for some variables you can give default values and some variables you can assign them. That is of means. So for example, here you have some uh, for the student, okay, fee details. So total amount to be paid. There is a variable total amount to be paid. So that is standard for everybody. So in the init, you can say total amount to be paid equal to 1 lakh. So then rest all other details you can place it here. So when you are initialization, so you can supply what is the default one. So everybody that value will be the same, and then student details you can add it. So but facility is there, and it is all depends on your program requirement and how you want to design them. So that is the concept here. So this is a constructor kind of concept, and here we call as a init in Python. Null word is a constructor. Okay. So today I'm going to stop, because I have something other to do, and rest will continue, but you try to continue, practice it, and then we can meet again tomorrow. So if you have any questions, you can email, or maybe you can text here also. I'll try to cover in the next class.